gotta go. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn it on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it's cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're not. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep right until I feel your heart touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road and overdrive, baby. Hit the road and overdrive. The city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your heart touch. I said, ooh, drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. But whenever let it go, this time I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Feel free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody. Let me be among probably the last people to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I know it was yesterday. I know it's over. But, hey, we should always be thankful. So let me be the last to wish you a belated happy Thanksgiving. Hope you got plenty of good food. I wish the football games had been better yesterday. But hope you got plenty of good food and got to have a good, restful, relaxing Thanksgiving before we get back to the story that is the Tennessee by God Titans this weekend in Nashville. Finally, back in Nashville. For the first time since the Falcons game, they're finally back at home, 3-7, and hosting the Carolina Panthers. And it is sure to be a barn burner. The Titans and the Panthers, come on. What a huge game that we all can't wait to see. Two high-powered offenses getting ready to go at it. Let's first of all talk about the report that has come out over actually yesterday from Diana Rossini, who pretty much, I'm reading the exact quote, based on multiple conversations with high-ranking Titans officials, the franchise strongly and collectively believes it has the right coach for long-term success. So, I hate to sound like a prophet, but this is exactly what I've been saying on the podcast for weeks. The fans had Mike Vrabel on a hot seat, and the organization, quite frankly, doesn't. They blame it all on Robinson. The roster sucks, and it's John Robinson's fault. That's the stance they're taking. And time will tell whether they're right or not. Time will tell. But for right now, that's the stance they're taking. The roster sucks. It's the old GM's fault. We haven't had the time or money to fix it yet. So, there you go. That's what I predicted. And if this report by Diana Rossini is true, which I believe it to be, then there you go. Vrabel's staying. My question would be this. Is that like set in stone? Is that non-negotiable? If the Titans come out and look horrible on Sunday and get beat by the Carolina Panthers, would that change things? If they don't win another game the rest of this season and finish 3-14, would that change things? I don't know. I don't know. My gut feeling is no, because I don't think they're blaming Vrabel for any of it. Now, I believe Vrabel's not totally innocent. I have voiced that on the podcast before. I don't think Vrabel's the number one culprit, but I don't think, he's totally innocent either. I think there are times when he's very complacent in games. I think there are times when he should be a little more aggressive. I think he has, so far this season, looked like he doesn't have that same edge that he once had. That, go for two in London against the Chargers like he did in his first season as a coach. He hasn't been doing a lot of that. He punts on 4th and 1 all the time. There are some questionable things like, why have we been insisting on playing players at positions that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why have we insisted on making Dylan Radins play 5 different positions instead of just letting him zero in on the position that he was drafted to play? That's just one example, but there are many. Why do we keep putting Kyle Phillips back at punt returner when he's just not a good punt returner? Not a knock on Kyle, but he's just not a good punt returner. So there are things Vrabel needs to be better at, for sure. I think, we've talked about before, there are certain players that we were counting on to get better that have regressed, such as Chigo Okonkwo. There are others, but I'm just using him as a prime example because I think he's the number one example. And these are guys that are going to have to be better next year. No matter how many free agents you pick up, no matter how many trades you make, no matter how many good draft picks you have, guys like Chigo Okonkwo and Kyle Phillips and Elijah Molden and Monty Rice and, some other guys like that, Roger McCreary. These are guys who are going to be on the team next year who are going to have to be better. They're going to have to get better over the offseason. They're going to have to get better at training camp, and they're going to have to come in and play better next year. And I would prefer to see them start playing better with the games that remain this year. Makes me think of our old friend Mike Mularkey. Mike Mularkey was the head coach before Mike Vrabel. And you know what he did in his last season as the Titans coach? They went to the playoffs and beat the Chiefs on the road at a playoff game before getting eliminated by Tom Brady and the Patriots the next week. And then Mike Mularkey was fired. He The Titans made the playoffs for the first time in over a decade, won a playoff game for the first time in since the McNair days, and then he got fired. Do you remember why? He got fired. The story was he got fired because there were some changes that ownership wanted him to make that he was not willing to make. Some believe they wanted him to get rid of Terry Robisky as the offensive coordinator, and he didn't want to do it. They couldn't agree, and so they let him go. So there are some who are saying, I could see Mike Vrabel doing the same thing. What if at the end of the year, Amy looks at Mike and says, hey, you need to get rid of some of these coaches. You need to change up the philosophy a little bit, like they did with Malarkey. And what if Vrabel says, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get rid of this certain coach. I don't want to do this certain thing. Then would that open the door for them to move away from Vrabel? I want to say this. I don't see it happening, guys. I don't see it happening. I mean, maybe if they lose 50-0 to Carolina on Sunday, then things change a little bit. But as of right now, I just don't see a scenario. I think the Titans are probably going to squeak out a couple of wins somehow. One of them is probably going to be on Sunday against Carolina. And then, I don't know, maybe they'll squeak out one against Indianapolis or, if they don't beat these next two teams, I don't know how they're going to beat any of the others. Because after that, it's Miami. I don't see them beating Miami at Miami. Then they got Houston twice. I don't see them beating Houston even once. They got Seattle at home. I could see that maybe being a game the Titans could slip up and win, but there's also a chance they could get brutalized by the Seahawks. And then they got the Jags again. The only way they could beat the Jags is if it's a situation where the Jags have nothing to play for in the last week of the season and they're resting their starters, then maybe you sneak a win there. But I feel like the Titans are probably going to finish with 5 or 6 wins. So I don't think it's going to be all doom and gloom from here on out. But ultimately, we've already had somebody in the chat. And let me scroll up and see who that was. It's not going to let me scroll up, so I think it was Titan South, but if it was somebody else, let me know, because it won't let me scroll. Somebody said, what should we do as fans? Should we be rooting for the Titans to lose? Because ultimately, Carolina is one of the teams in front of Tennessee in the draft order. I know Carolina is ultimately represented by the Bears because the Bears have their pick, but it's still Carolina who's, So Carolina, represented by Chicago, is one of the teams in front of Tennessee in the draft order right now. So honestly, you need Carolina to somehow squeak out a couple wins in the last little stretch here. So, I mean, what are the odds if the Titans do beat Carolina on Sunday? What are the odds that you're going to run the table, go 10-7, and make a playoff push? Okay, that's not happening. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not happening. So would it not just be better off to lose and try to get one of these great tackles that are probably going to go in the top 5 or Marvin Harrison or something like that? I mean, some people say you're a bad fan if you do that. Some people say you're a bad fan if you want the team to lose so that they get a better draft pick. But I do think the team reaches a certain... they're 3-7. The team reaches a certain point where, unfortunately, in the NFL, what is the point in winning? Other than for the players, I know there's the pride and the game they love. They don't have it in them to go out there and just lay down. I get that. I'm not talking about from the players' perspective. I think the players are always going to go out and try to win, no matter what the records are. But for fans, unfortunately, it is a situation where you go, there's nothing to be gained by winning here. The only difference is we'll finish with 4 wins instead of 3. Whoop-de-doo. But there is something to be gained by losing, because then we move up in the draft order. So it is a conundrum. It is a conundrum. I am personally, I don't like when a team comes out and maybe they start the season 0-2 and fans are already like, well, we just need to start tanking. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, when a team starts out 0-2, 0-3, or maybe 1-3, I mean, we've already seen teams like Green Bay and Denver who, their fans were calling for them to tank and get a better draft pick, and now look at them. All of a sudden, they've got it together and they're looking like they might make a playoff push, both of them. So, as a matter of fact, I would say Denver is one of the hottest teams in the league right now. So, I think it's ridiculous when a team starts off bad and the team and the fans are already calling for them to tank, get a better draft pick. But this ain't the beginning of the season anymore. We are now at a point where 10 games have been played. More games have been played than are to come. Okay, we got more games behind us this season than we do in front of us. So if you still suck now, chances are you just aren't a very good team. Okay, so I can't blame you if you're looking at a 3-7 team who has looked as bad as Tennessee has looked these last 2 weeks. These last 2 weeks against Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, at least against New Orleans and Indianapolis, I at least felt like they were being competitive. But these last 2 weeks against Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, they haven't even been competitive. So, some people say in a perfect world, for the rest of this season, Will Levis would look great, the young guys would look great, and the Titans would still lose. A lot of people say that would be the perfect scenario. The young guys look good and make plays, and then we lose, Titan Fox says, who other than Carolina would you envision the Titans beating? I said it earlier. I think the Titans could beat Indianapolis. Even though Indianapolis is gritty and they churn out wins, they've already beaten the Titans once. I think the Titans could theoretically at home squeak one out against the Colts if they play well. Long shot. I think the Titans, I could see the Titans maybe getting a situation against Jacksonville in the final week of the season where the Jaguars are just resting their starters. But ultimately, that's the thing. I would rather just finish 3-14 than to squeak out a couple wins and end up somewhere in the middle of the pack. I think a couple more wins is probably going to land you in the same spot you were in last year where they got Peter Skoronski, which is great. I mean, they had the number 11 pick. That's still a high pick. But, if you want the tackle from Notre Dame, you're going to have to be up there. If you want Marvin Harrison, you're going to have to be, in the top 3, top 2, The other tackle that I can't remember his name, if you want him, you're going to have to be up there. You're not going to be able to get him at 10. You're not going to be able to get him at 11. Something that I posted on the Two Tone Talk Twitter account. Be sure to go follow me over there, twotone_podcast. Got a lot of feedback from fans. Pro Football Focus laid it out there for you. They said these are the upcoming free agent wide receivers at the end of the season. Let me just read off these names. First name is, of course, T. Higgins from Cincinnati. We've talked about him all year. I still think there's a chance that the Bengals bring him back, but there's going to be a lot of people trying to sign T. Higgins. Do the Titans have an advantage because they have more money than anybody else right now? Maybe. But who are the other names? Michael Pittman Jr. from Indianapolis. Talented young receiver there. Mike Evans from Tampa Bay. Mike Evans has had a tremendous career. I would be very hesitant if I'm the Titans to sign Mike Evans. You're already going to have DeAndre Hopkins back theoretically next year, who is an older wide receiver. I think Mike Evans has been in the league a long time. I think he's beat up. I think he deals with injuries a lot. I think if Mike Evans is going to go somewhere, it's going to be probably Philadelphia, because Philadelphia signs everybody. Marquise Brown, a lot of people have wanted him because of his speed. Calvin Ridley, Calvin Ridley torched Tennessee on Sunday, so maybe you go get Calvin Ridley. Darnell Mooney, Tyler Boyd, Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is an intriguing name. And then, of course, a lot of people are talking about Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco. I would love Brandon Ayuk. That's the one I want the most, but, got a long way to go. And I hate to have to already be talking about free agency in the middle of the season. So let's talk about stuff going on this season. This is the 32-1 Two-Tone Talk Power Rankings. Okay, this is based on just how I feel about these teams. This is not just based on records. This is not just based on who I like and who I don't. This is how I see the NFL. And here we go with the 32-1 power rankings. The bottom three. At number 32, last place, worst team in the league, the Carolina Panthers. Let me say it again. The Carolina Panthers, as most people would say, are the worst team in the NFL. So when Bryce Young comes out Sunday and has a career game, when Bryce Young comes out and has one of those games on Sunday against the Titans where everybody walks away saying, maybe this guy really can be good. Bryce Young is really figuring it out in Carolina after he goes for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns on Sunday. Just remember, they are, as of right now, the worst team in football. When they sack Will Levis 18 times on Sunday, just remember, they are the worst team in football as they do it. Number 31. No stranger to the bottom three. It's the New England Patriots. The Patriots were off this week, but, there's a lot of changes coming in New England. They're just a bad team. Number 30, a new team to the bottom three. It is the Washington Commanders. I could see this team. I definitely think Rivera's gone at the end of the year. I could see the Commanders just completely cleaning house with a lot of people. The Commanders just, not so much what happened yesterday, getting whooped by the Cowboys. That was bad, but I'm thinking back to what happened to them on Sunday, where they got toasted by the Tommy DeVito-led New York Giants. Tommy DeVito, who previously looked like he didn't even belong in the NFL, he looked so bad. He threw for nearly 300 yards against the Commanders the other day. Or against against the Commanders. It's just awful. Commanders are bad. So that's the bottom three this week. Let's move into the 20s. As we move up the list, number 29 are those New York Giants. New York Giants, still bad, still awful, just because they squeaked out of the bottom three. The Giants are still bad, and I don't know what they're going to do because I think they're stuck with Daniel Jones. But, they're going with Tommy DeVito the rest of the year. 28, the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields was back this past Sunday. It didn't matter. If there's any team out there more desperate for an offensive lineman than Tennessee, it is probably Chicago. Their offensive line's terrible, and I'm going to be fair. It is, just like it is for Will Levis, it is difficult to evaluate Justin Fields with an offensive line this bad. And I am noticing across the NFL, good protection in the NFL is just hard to come by these days. It is tough. Because, some of these guys on these defensive fronts for teams are good. And the offensive linemen in the NFL now are struggling across the board. Number 27, it's the good guys, the Tennessee Titans. The lowest they've been on the list all year. I hate it, guys. I hate seeing the Titans this low. I hate having to talk about the Titans alongside teams like the Bears and the Giants and the Commanders. Like, I hate them being down here on this list because I remember just a couple of years ago when they would have been toward the top of this list. I hate it, man. Number 26, the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, I put the Arizona Cardinals ahead of the Titans because right now I feel like Kyler Murray would decimate the Titans defense. If they played one-on-one right now, I think that the Kyler Murray-led Cardinals would wipe the floor with Tennessee right now. So this is probably the highest Arizona has even been ranked on this list, and they lost Sunday. They lost to Houston, but they put in a good effort. Number 25, Jets, Jets. They finally pulled the plug on Zach Wilson. I think they've finally given up on Zach Wilson. After all of that talk of the loyalty that they have, we're going to stick with Wilson. That's our guy. Well, so much for that. What a just disappointment this season has been for the Jets. I mean, they were so excited. Aaron Rodgers, we're gonna run the table with Rodgers, and of course we know what happened with him week 1, and then Zach Wilson had a little spell there where he started to look better, and there was talk of Rodgers making this miraculous return. It was like, oh man, we're gonna sneak in as a wild card team, and Rodgers is gonna come back, and now it's looking like that's not gonna happen. Number 24, the Chargers, the lowest the Chargers have been ranked on this list all year. I can't believe how bad the Chargers are. The Chargers, another team that I could see just completely cleaning house at the end of the year. I mean, the Chargers, they've got a great young quarterback, and they are just consistently letting him down. Just not a lot good going on there. What a disappointing season it's been for them. Number 23, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons were off this week, so I'm going to leave the Falcons in the exact same spot I had them in last week, which is 23, and they have a huge game on Sunday in that division that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Number 22, the Raiders. Raiders took a tough L on Sunday to the Dolphins. I still think the Raiders are going to make it interesting. I still think the Raiders are going to be a team that's in the hunt, but ultimately the quarterback situation I think is what's going to do them in. Number 21, the Rams. The Rams, honestly, when they have Stafford and are more healthy, the Rams are not bad. The Rams are a pretty good little team that I could see finding themselves in the hunt in the NFC wildcard race. I just don't know if they could stay healthy enough, but I mean, the Rams got a great win on Sunday, and I think they're like one game back from the wild card, maybe 2. So we'll see. That 7th spot in the NFC right now is just wide open. I think it belongs to Minnesota right now, but I mean, I could see the Rams working themselves kind of into that spot. So let's move to the other side of the screen, into the teams here. But at 20, we've got the Buccaneers, the Bucks. Listen, the Bucks have lost like 5 of their last 6 games. Guess who the win came against? You guessed it, the Tennessee Titans. The Bucks, man, they're fighters. They're competitive, but, they played the 49ers on Sunday. I wouldn't want to play the 49ers right now if my life depended on it. But the Bucks took a tough one on Sunday, and it looks like the Bucks are just, their season's kind of on life support, it feels like. Number 19, Indianapolis. They were off this week. Titans could have picked a game up on them, but that's hilarious. Of course they didn't do it. The Colts, like I said, I think the Colts are not very good, but they keep winning. I think their owner is absolutely insane, if you've been looking at his Twitter. But the Colts do keep churning out wins, and because of that, they find themselves somewhere in that AFC wildcard race. Number 18, the Saints, who stand alone at the top of the NFC South right now. They were off this week. But, it's going to be an interesting one Sunday. We're going to talk about it here in a second. The Saints, huge game on Sunday. Number 17, the Green Bay Packers, who have shot up this list. Maybe the biggest jump of any team so far this year. They jumped from 27 to 17 because the Packers have somewhat figured it out. What did Aaron Rodgers say on the McAfee show? Narratives change quick. Just a few weeks ago, everybody was sailing Green Bay down the river, including me. They were sailing Jordan Love down the river. And look at these Packers now, man. The Packers just whooped the Detroit Lions yesterday, beat the Chargers, who most people thought they would lose to on Sunday. I mean, this has been a good few days for the Packers, and now all of a sudden the Packers are one game back from a playoff spot. Whoa! What a turnaround for our old friend Matt LaFleur there in Green Bay. And I'm interested, man. This Green Bay thing, man. Look at them. That's why I said earlier, I can't stand when fans give up on their team just because they don't start off hot at the beginning of the year. Because the NFL season is long. It is a roller coaster ride, and things change. Things change. Number 16, the Steelers. The Steelers, I mean, I'm just waiting on the Steelers to come back down to earth. I'm just waiting. They look so bad. Kenny Pickett looks so bad. But they keep winning. But they did not win Sunday. They still are projected right now to have a playoff spot. But I don't know if it's going to last. I mean, the Steelers, I don't know how you can consistently look that bad and continue to win. I don't know if you can keep doing that. And I personally don't want the Steelers to make the playoffs because I feel like it would be a wasted playoff spot. I feel like the Steelers are just going to be an easy out for whoever they play in round one. Number 15, the Bengals. Oh, boy. Disaster for the Bengals. Joe Burrow done for the year. Their backup doesn't look good. And this is a bummer for them. This is a bummer for Cincinnati, who has been in the AFC Championship game for 2 years in a row, was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and now, like, their fans had such high hopes coming into this year, and rightfully so, and now this. And it just sure looks like the Bengals are about to just go off a cliff, unfortunately for them. Number 14, the Minnesota Vikings. Speaking of going off of a cliff, I'm not going to say the Vikings are going off a cliff, but I do think some of that Josh Dobbs magic has kind of worn off. I mean, Josh Dobbs kind of reminds me of Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know how Fitzpatrick would come in for a team, have a few good games. They called it Fitz Magic. And then it would he always would come back down to earth at some point. Kind of feels like that's what's going on with Josh Dobbs in Minnesota. He's still good, and he can still win some games with them. But those first two games that he had where he was just making unbelievable plays, it looked like against Denver Sunday night, back down to reality a little bit. Vikings, I think, right now are the 7th seed in the NFC. We'll see if that continues. Seattle Seahawks at 13, and they're lucky they didn't drop further down the list. I mean, it's been an awful few days for the Seattle Seahawks because they were in contention. They were like half a game or something behind San Francisco in that division, and then they take an unacceptable loss to the Rams on Sunday. Some of you say, how are they still this high on the list? Well, they were like number 10 last week. So they do drop a few spots. They just unacceptable loss to the Rams on Sunday, and then you follow it up by just getting beat soundly last night by the 49ers, right? I mean, they made it interesting down the stretch, because originally it was 24-3. They managed to cut it to 24-13, and then they ended up getting beat 31-13. So they got beat pretty soundly. And now the division's out of reach for them. I mean, the 49ers have got this thing rolling. The 49ers are going to take that division. And it's been a rough few days for Seattle. Number 12, the Buffalo Bills. Bills got a much-needed win. Bills still, I don't know what to make of the Bills. My gut tells me that with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, they are going to figure out how to get into these playoffs somehow. But, I mean, they played the Jets at home. That was just a game you can't lose, and they got the win, which they needed, got back above 500. But I still don't know about this Buffalo team. Number 11, how about the Denver Broncos? The Broncos were like in the low 20s like a little while ago. Now they're all the way up at number 11 on this list. I can't believe. I mean, if this keeps up, now you got to talk about Sean Payton as the coach of the year. Russell Wilson, who everybody would like, he had become a total joke. Russell Wilson's playing well. And this Denver team, look at what they have done. They beat Kansas. They beat the crap out of Kansas City a few weeks ago. Then they beat Buffalo in Buffalo on Monday Night Football. And then they beat Minnesota, who was red hot coming in there. Everybody thought Minnesota, hung the moon. Denver, that's 3 very impressive wins back to back to back. And Denver, one of the hottest teams in the league right now. I wouldn't want to play them. Let's get into the top 10. Number 10, and I hate it, but number 10, I got the Houston Texans, and I hate it. I hate it. I don't want even one team in our division to be on this top 10 list. We got 2 teams in our division on this top 10 list. I got the Texans at number 10. CJ Stroud looks great. They look good. They look way better than I thought they would, and I hate it. Number 9, let's go with, I believe, it's the Browns. Cleveland Browns. I mean, the Browns with backup quarterbacks, I have to put them on the top 10 list because they keep winning. I mean, they're 7-3. They keep winning. And they're somehow nipping at the Ravens' heels in that division. They have such a great defense. And, it was an ugly 13-10 win, I believe, on Sunday over the Steelers, but it was another win for the Browns. So I got to put them up here. They keep on winning. Number 8, the stupid idiot Jaguars. Now, you were talking about a big game. Jaguars versus Texans on Sunday. It's going to be a big one. That's a big old game coming up. Maybe they'll both just beat each other to death, for all I care. But the Jags are number 8. I mean, got back on track Sunday. If you want to get back on track, play the Titans. If you want to have a get-back game, in college football, when a team plays like UTEP, or when a team plays, I almost said New Mexico State, but I don't even want to say that because they beat Auburn last week. But, when a team has to play like Chattanooga, it's just a get-right game. Let's have a nice little 70-0 blowout, get things back on track. That's what it's like when you play the Titans. Because the Jaguars looked horrible the week before. They didn't even score a touchdown, but they came back this week, and all of a sudden Trevor Lawrence is godlike again, and Calvin Ridley's the best free agent pickup we've ever seen, and all this other crap. Everybody's just having a good old time. Because the Titans, that's what they are now. They're the get-right game for everybody. Number 7, the Lions. Lions took one on the chin yesterday, and they better not let up. I mean, the Lions are 8-3. They're still in good position. They're 2 games ahead of Minnesota. They're 3 games ahead of Green Bay. There's no excuse for Detroit to lose this division, but they better not let up. Because, it's not like they've got a bunch of bad teams behind them. These are teams that are getting better. But Detroit took a tough one yesterday. The Lions have done this season. When the Lions lose, they really lose. You remember when they got beat up by the Ravens. So when the Lions lose, they really look bad, Let's get to number 6, the Chiefs. What's going on in Kansas City, guys? What is going on in Kansas City? You got a generational quarterback. You got a generational tight end with Mahomes and Kelsey. But ultimately, their other weapons, their other receivers are so mid, and it cost them that game the other night. They have a bunch of mid receivers once you get past Kelsey. And I'm telling you, I think it's going to cost them down the line. When they get to the playoffs and they got to play the Ravens, or they got to play a tough defense like Cleveland or whoever it is, Jacksonville, Houston, Buffalo, whoever they end up playing, Miami, they're going to wish that they had some better weapons at wide receiver because it cost them a game the other night. Let's get into the top 5. Number 5, the Dolphins. I had them at number 5 last week. I'm going to keep them at number 5. Got a good win over the Raiders. The Raiders were kind of rolling coming into that game, so good win by Miami. They still have not beat a team over 500. And speaking of not beating a team over 500, at number 4 is the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, the Cowboys have looked great. The Cowboys, as great as they have looked, they have still not beaten a team over 500 this season. They're 8-3. None of those 8 wins have come against. They have beaten Washington. They've beaten the Giants. They've beaten the Panthers. They've beaten the Jets. They've beaten. They obviously lost to the Eagles because the Eagles are 9-1, so that's a team over 500. But they have not beaten a team over 500 yet. So, yes, I've got the Cowboys at 4. The Cowboys are a contender in the NFC, but just keep it in your back pocket. They have not beaten a team over 500. And in fact, the teams they have beaten, none of them are even close to being over 500. They're all 3-8, 3-7, 4-6. Let's get into the top 3. Number 3, the Baltimore Ravens, who continue to look good, 8-3. After they took that tough loss to the Browns, they come back. They beat the Bengals. I do think the Ravens are going to have trouble with their tight end, Mark Andrews, being done for the rest of the year. That's a great weapon for them. One of the better tight ends in the league, done for the year. So we'll see how that affects them down the stretch. But for right now, the Ravens are number 3. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers have jumped back up there. The 49ers have figured it out, baby. Some teams need that bye week. Some teams need that bye week to just reset and figure it out. The 49ers had lost 3 games in a row. They had their bye. They went away. They figured it out. They came back. They beat the buttholes off of the... There's got to be a better way to say what I just said. But they beat the buttholes off of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then they come back. They whoop up on Tampa Bay, and then they come back last night, and they beat the buttholes off the Seattle Seahawks, and now they are just right back in this thing. I mean, they look great. They look great. And then, of course, number 1, guess who? It's the A.J. Brown-led, even though he didn't do crap the other night, but it's the A.J. Brown-led Philadelphia Eagles. Did you guys know, let me just rant real quick, Jalen Hurts passed Cam Newton for the most rushing touchdowns, or he tied Cam Newton for the most rushing touchdowns by an NFL quarterback. Bravo. Cam Newton used to, break off all these unbelievable runs and flip and dive into the end zone and jump over defenders and truck people and spin move and juke his way all the way to the end zone. Jalen Hurts gets a little tush-push. Jalen Hurts gets his little buddies behind him and they push on his cheeks and they put him in the end zone. Good for you. It's not the same. It is not the same. One guy is exhibiting skill to find the end zone, and one guy is getting his little cheeks pushed. He's getting his little cheekies pushed into the end zone by his buddies. It's a great play, and it works. And, if I were them, I would run it every play. But, people are now going to sit here and try and act like it's the same thing. When a guy... And my dog's mad about it. You hear that? He's had enough. Let's look at the rest of the games for this weekend. Steelers-Bengals. I think this is going to be the death knell for the Bengals. I think Steelers are going to beat them in Cincinnati. Not because the Steelers are that good, but just because the Bengals... the Steelers keep getting these kinds of things. This would be a game that you would have picked the Steelers to lose, but without Burrow, I have trouble picking the Bengals. So I'm going to go with the Steelers. Jags, Texans, like I said, hope they beat each other to death, but Jags and Texans, it's a critical game in the AFC South. If the Texans win this game, they've already beaten the Jaguars once. So if the Texans win this game, they are in first place in the AFC South, which is freaking hilarious. Which is freaking hilarious in terms of the Jaguars, but we also hate the Texans too, so it's a lose-lose. I'm picking the Texans. It's in Houston. And I think C.J. Stroud is better than the chick-looking dude for Jacksonville. Bucks, Colts. Oh boy, I'm gonna go with the Bucks. I think the Bucks. I think the Bucks are just better than the Colts. I don't care about the records. I think the Bucks are better than the Colts, and I think the Bucks are gonna beat them. Jim Irsay will probably be too busy tweeting about Stephen A. Smith in First Take. Saints Falcons. So this is a critical game in the NFC South. The Falcons, I believe, whoever wins will be in first place. I mean, this is the kind of thing where if you're Atlanta, you lose, you would now be 2 games back in the division. And with the way their offense looks, that seems insurmountable. But if you can win, you're in first place. It's in Atlanta. I don't believe in Desmond Ridder at all. I got to go with the Saints. I just don't. Derek Carr is going to be back for the Saints. I'm not a big believer in Derek Carr, but I believe in him more than I believe in Desmond Ridder. And I think now the Falcons do still. I got to believe the Falcons got to still have a good defense in there somewhere. And if they could just lean more into their run game with Algier and Bijan Robinson, they probably would win. But they just never do. They never lean into that. They always, try to run a tight end pass where Jonnu Smith tries to throw it to somebody. Patriots, Giants. This is actually an important game in terms of the draft because these are 2 teams right here, the Patriots and the Giants. They are both ahead of Tennessee in the draft order. So one of them's going to win. Unfortunately, one of them will lose too. Rams, Cardinals. I think the Rams will win this one and again find themselves kind of in that NFC wildcard race. The Rams are still alive. Browns, Broncos. I'm giving it to the Broncos, man. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game because the Browns have that good defense, but Denver's defense is not bad either, obviously. And so I think that the Broncos win. It's in Denver. They're red hot, and I think the Broncos keep this thing rolling. I think they beat the Browns. Chiefs, Raiders. I mean, what's the level of concern for Kansas City if they lose this game? I don't think they will, though. I think Mahomes alone is enough to go on the road and beat Las Vegas. I got the Chiefs. Bills, Eagles. I mean, this is a huge game for the Bills. Because if you can go on the road and win this game, you get people believing again. If you can go on the road and beat Philadelphia, you can get people believing in you again. And this is going to be my upset special of the week. I am picking the Bills to go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles on Sunday. I don't know why. I just feel like Josh Allen, with the back against the wall, is going to come out and just try to do some of that insane throws that no quarterback should make, and I just feel like for some reason he's going to connect on some of them. The Eagles are due a loss. I'm going with the Bills. Ravens, Chargers on Sunday Night Football. This is kind of the last stand for the Chargers. I think the Ravens are going to beat them because we all know the Chargers don't have a home field advantage because they don't have much of a fan base. Monday Night Football, another just brutal Monday night game. It's the Bears and the Vikings. I'll say the Vikings get back on track in Minnesota in prime time. I'll say Dobbs figures it out and the Vikings beat the Bears. And then last but not least, the Carolina Panthers and the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. I mean, what do you think, man? What do you think? What do you want to happen? Do you want the Titans to win? Do you want the Titans to lose? It would be an awful loss. Like, an embarrassing loss. If you get beat by Carolina, you are now going to have people start talking about you as the worst team in the league if you lose to Carolina on Sunday. Obviously, I think Jalen Duncan is going to be starting at left tackle. I'm interested to see how he does. I'm going to say this is one of those 13-10 brutal games to watch. I'm going to say this is going to be one of those that you have to just force yourself to watch because it's going to be so ugly. I'm going to say the Titans pull it out. I'm going to say the Titans pull it out at home and beat Carolina. For what? I don't know, because they're probably going to turn around and lose again the next week. But I'm going to pick Tennessee to win. I do think Tennessee will win because I think Carolina's horrible. Tennessee is bad. Carolina is horrible. So, I guess I'll go with Tennessee. there you go, everybody. This is the Two Tone Talk podcast, where we're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. I hope you all had a great, safe, happy Thanksgiving. If you're like me and you've got more Thanksgiving get-togethers to get to this weekend, enjoy them. Enjoy the good food. Enjoy all the football. Some great college football this weekend. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon State. Obviously, I'm living in the state of Alabama, the Iron Bowl. There's a lot of great college football coming this weekend and a lot of great NFL football as well. So enjoy it all. Have a happy holiday. And I will see you on Monday to talk about whatever happens on Sunday. Thank you, guys. Tighten up. Bye.
But trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you to fit their mold. I think it's time for a change. This is what I say. Feel free to be